Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Random Gleanings. We thought we'd talk a little bit about supply and demand this time. We've been seeing a ton of discussion on inflation, and we thought we'd weigh in.
Yeah, so the Labor Department announced a 4.2% cost increase on materials year over year. But the question is that increased demand, or is the demand really the same but the supply is lower? Because there's been less manufacturing of cars, fewer computer chips, drywall, whatever, because of COVID.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of certainly that, supply chain issues because of COVID, but also COVID created a demand drop-off last year as the economy shut down. Is that right? I mean,
That's right.
Am I wrong? Yeah.
So, from I've seen our fixed income managers say they're not too worried about inflation for the long run and not to get too worked up about this. The Federal Reserve said some of that as well. Percentage inflation probably drops off some after supply begins to increase. And of course, over time, price tends to cure price. If a price goes up, everyone gets in that business and then there's more supply, right?
That's how it's worked throughout history. And listen, we do think that the temporary spike is just that, temporary. But there has been some dynamics that would suggest that there's some concerns about longer-term inflation, and hopefully it goes without saying that we are obviously paying attention to that for your benefit and for ours.
So I saw a great quote on inflation over the last week. It was, "Inflation is not all bad. After all, it's allowed every American to live in a more expensive neighborhood without moving."
No truer words have been said for those of us that live in the upstate South Carolina, that's for sure. Housing has been just hammering it. We have seen bidding wars or all cash offers and very quick sales. Does that mean that we're in a 07, 08 type bubble in the housing market?
So I don't think so. Low interest rates, lots of demand, but crazily enough, just not enough supply in the housing market. And there's plenty of more money out there chasing homes as well. But consider this. So the U.S. Census Bureau reported that average homes built per decade between 1970 and 2010 were about 15.2 million homes per decade built. But what about the last 10 years? What about the decade of the 2010s? Well, only 10.4 million homes were built in that time period. So, you combine that with a population growth. By the way, since 1970, the U.S. population's grown by about 130 million people. So, it's pretty easy to understand how we could end up in a scenario where there's just so much demand for housing and there aren't enough homes. Everyone talks about the crazy stuff happening. Heck, we had a realtor client call us last week. She shared that they had 25 appointments scheduled to look at the house, 15 the first day, I think 10 the second. And she had to cancel the 10 on the second day because they had 9 offers out of 15 showings on the first day.
Wow. Yeah. So, again, supply and demand, right? Econ 101, if price equals demand divided by supply, and the population is growing and there's less supply relative to the population, we're going to see some increases. Add more money to the economy by way of low interest rates and people's ability to get their hands on that money. It's inevitable that we're going to see these bidding wars on homes. Am I wrong?
Nah, you're right, and I don't think in the near run this ends with a housing bubble, candidly. Yeah. So next topic, we're also hearing a fair amount about the potential for capital gains tax increases. We're in the Southeast, predominantly red states. It's popular to talk about tax increases and assume that we'll all be paying them, but I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah. So first point I'd make is it's not law. It's probably headed that direction, but it's not yet. It is a proposal. But just for our own edification, the proposal suggests that the capital gains rate would go up to your highest marginal bracket if you are making $1 million or more as a household annually. Um, Trevor Lawrence, first pick in the draft, he may have some things to consider as he invests in a taxable account coming in the future. But for most of us, I'm not losing any sleep over this, and I would think that for most of us, it's not something that we need to concern ourselves with a great deal at this point.
Agreed.
Yeah. And speaking of the draft and finding a new all-star, your professional planning and wealth team has found our own in a new client care associate, Kim Ertl. We are very excited to welcome her and wanted to let you all know. We're going to introduce her more formally in an upcoming newsletter, but a former Midwesterner like myself, and couldn't be more excited about having her on our team to serve you and help us.
Absolutely. Welcome, Kim, please, when you hear from her. And as always, thanks so much for the privilege to serve you. We'll talk with you soon.
Thanks so much. Y'all take care.